I think GM continues to go higher. First, the average age of the car right now in the U.S. is still close to 10 years old. At the trough of the auto cycle, it was about 11. At the peak, it is about 7. So auto sales, as far as an upgrade cycle or a necessity purchase cycle, have a long way to go. You also have people who buy new cars every 3 years because of the lease cycle. And also, one of the biggest motivators of new car purchases is all of the infotainment and collision avoidance features that are now available in new cars. So I think that the runway still is got a ways to go for GM and also Ford as well. So I think there's further upside in GM and Ford.
So on Ford, Phil, anything you can extrapolate from the GM quarter on how it bodes for Ford, which has been having a much more difficult time with its own business?
Right, well, but those are Ford-specific issues. I'm sorry, let me quickly answer, and then I know our guest will jump. But with regard to Ford, those are Ford-specific issues that have been weighing on the stock over the last 18 months. As they work through those, and if you just strictly look at the auto business, the good news here is what GM and Ford and Fiat Chrysler are all seeing. Continued strong demand for pickup trucks, SUVs, crossovers. And as Ford starts to ramp up its cadence in those vehicles, those more high-profit vehicles, that will bode well for the bottom line.
Ivan, your take on Ford? You say it's a buy. It's down more than 20% so far this year.
Yes, Ford still dominates the pickup market. The Ford F-150 is the #1 selling vehicle in the history of the auto industry. But General Motors dominates the SUV crossover, the luxury market with Buick and Cadillac, and of course the large SUV market with the Chevy Suburban, Tahoe, GMC, Denali, and Yukon. And the demand for those vehicles remains strong, and those are their most profitable vehicles. Also, GM still has a 3.6% dividend yield, and Ford has over a 6% dividend yield. So those are pretty good dividends to pay you to wait for Ford to recover, and I believe GM will also continue to go higher.
Ivan, it hasn't been a great 12-month for any of the car makers, right? Fiat down 9%, dollar equivalent. GM down 14% over 12 months. Ford, though, down over 20%. To Sarah's point, listen, we're in the strongest consumer economy in decades, if not of all time, and Ford can't seem to sell a car. Does Jim Hackett need to be cut loose, the CEO, and pushed out now, sooner rather than later, or do you believe he is ultimately the person for the job?
I'm really not sure. I would say it's not totally his fault. Ford needs some redesign in a number of their vehicles, and they need a bigger push in the luxury market. Lincoln still trails Cadillac significantly. Cadillac is the dominant American luxury car brand, and also in China. And also Buick offers a tremendous luxury value product. So Ford is missing out on a couple areas. They're winning in pickup trucks. They are winning in sports cars. The Mustang is doing very well. There's a number of different models across all price points that are all doing well. But I think GM right now has the best lineup it's ever had as far as vehicles in the history of its in the company's history. They are led by one of the best CEOs in the company's history. So I think the wind is at their back. Yes, the strong employment picture bodes well for the car market, because the first thing that somebody does when they get a new job is get a new car. So that's also why I think the car demand cycle has a ways to go.
And maybe why we saw the U.S. as a strong point in that quarter for GM, Phil, though you highlighted China and through the soundbite from the GM CFO. Is that a sustainable gain for these automakers in China in the middle of this trade friction and the trade war, which could get worse?
Oh, well, China is a concern. There's no doubt about that, Sarah. China is a concern. Look, September sales were down 15% for GM. They still managed to post record profitability in China. But if it's weak in October, which we expect it to be, and there is not some type of a sales cut reduction in China, and we see sales down double digits for November and December, yeah, that's going to weigh on the bottom line for General Motors and for all the automakers.